From San Antonio, Texas, home of the Alamo, the Riverwalk, and the World Heritage San Antonio Missions, this is the Exit Planning Coach podcast with John F. Dini. Designed to help advisors who work with business owners, John talks with top professionals in the exit planning field about best practices, marketing tips, and how to be more effective when working with owners. Now, here's John F. Dini.
Welcome to the Exit Planning Coach podcast. I'm John F. Dini, and today I'm with John Brown as part of our Founders Series. John is the founder of the Business Enterprise Institute in Denver, Colorado, one of the certifying organizations and one of the oldest certified organizations in the U.S. for exit planners. So as advisors, I think you'd be very interested in how John got here and how he started out. Thanks for coming on, John.
Thank you, John. Happy to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. It really is. I've enjoyed it. We go back a ways now. We go back about 14 years. I think it was about 2010 when I started coming to BEI.
Yeah, at least that long. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
And by then you were already an established exit planning guru, but I don't think you were born that way. Or maybe you were.
Surprisingly, no, I was not.
No. How did you start out?
As an exit planner or just
No, in the beginning. You know, I mean, you could do the old Bill Cosby, I started out as a child, but we'll skip that part.
We'll skip the shop part. Yeah, it's pretty forgettable. So I'm from Michigan. My parents owned a small grocery store. So from the time I was 7 or 8 years old, I was working, making 25 cents an hour, which I thought was pretty darn good, helping my parents occasionally. And as I got older, went through high school, went to college, my mom said, you know, John, you talk a lot. You should be a lawyer. That's really kind of the first time I thought about what I wanted to do after high school and as I went into college. So I thought, hey, that sounds like a great idea. So that's how I went to law school. Why I decided to go to law school is my mom suggested it. So I graduated from University of Wisconsin Law School in the mid-1970s. And immediately, the same day I graduated, I moved back out to Colorado because I'd gone to undergrad at University of Colorado. And I knew that between Michigan and Colorado, I knew where I wanted to live because I was a skier primarily. And so after law school, I got a job with the state attorney general's office. I was appointed by the attorney general, and I was a special assistant attorney general for a while until an election came along. And at that time, almost all the positions in the attorney general's office were not civil service. So as soon as my attorney general lost his bid for re-election, I was out of a job. So that's good. Yeah, that got me started. So I then joined a small law firm, and I always enjoyed working with business owners. My dad was a business owner, so I understood some of the issues and pressures and concerns they had. And after a year or so, I met another young associate at the same law firm. We decided to leave and start our own law firm because we thought we could do a better job. And that was the birth of Minor and Brown. It's a law firm that still is thriving in Denver, Colorado today. It's a business law firm. And as Ned and I grew our law from the two of us to maybe 25 or 30 people, our focus was always on representing business owners. And, you know, you do things like contracts and estate plans and things like that. But as I got more experience, became older, I found that some owners would come to me and say, well, John, you know, I'm thinking of someday getting out of my business. Can you help me do that? And I had no experience doing that, but I learned by trial and error. And I learned that I really enjoyed helping business owners. And I have come to appreciate business owners, the stress they go under, their willingness to take risk. And so I wanted to help them. And at first, it was mostly just helping them do legal matters that help them stay in business or grow their business, employment contracts, buy-sell agreements. But then owners started to say, well, I'm thinking of getting out of my business. Can you help me? And again, I had no experience doing that. And so I said, sure, I think I can help you.
That's a sign of a good consultant. That's typically the answer when you know nothing about it. Sure, I can help you.
I figured I knew as much as they did, John. And so I started to do that more and more. And I found I really enjoyed helping owners, and I enjoyed working with their advisors, because I immediately realized that we needed a CPA, we needed maybe a different type of an attorney in addition to me. We needed an insurance advisor. Back then, there weren't really financial advisors to speak of. That profession really hadn't started to be anything significant the way it is today. And so I did that for a number of years. And then I thought, well, how do we market? Well, back then, lawyers couldn't really advertise like we can today. So I thought, well, I'll do what most lawyers do when they want to develop business. I'll write a book. And so I sat down and I wrote about 125 pages of a book. I realized that I was stuck. I wasn't going to be able to advance. So I decided to hire a ghostwriter, or an editor actually, to help me finish the book. It's a long story. I'll cut to the chase. I found an editor, a potential editor. He said, well, John, give me your book that as far as you've written it. Give me a week. I'll get back to you and I'll see if I can help. I'll tell you whether or not I think I can help you. I said, that's fair enough to me. And so this guy's name was Irv Sternberg. He comes back in a week, we meet. He said, John, I want you to understand that you've written a good first chapter, but you said the same thing 5 times. He said, but I can help you. And so that was the beginning of my quasi-writing career. I've since written a couple more books. But that put us on the map. The first book was called How to Run Your Business So You Can Leave It in Style. And it was probably, as far as I know, John, I could be wrong, it was the first book really focusing on planning for an owner's exit. It was specifically for that. And it sold a lot of copies. We printed, I self-published after a while, about 200,000 books.
Wow.
Yeah, there was really no competition at the time. So if somebody wanted to do something, and I spoke around the country to a lot of insurance advisors and CPA organizations and so on. And so that really put exit planning on the map. And then I did that I was still with the law firm. I did that for roughly 12 to 15 years. And I realized I didn't want to really practice law. And so I left the law firm, started my own business, Business Enterprise Institute, or BEI, and started, and it was going to be a membership-based organization. And we attracted other advisors, primarily lawyers and CPAs, some insurance advisors. But as time has gone on, I'm finding that most of our newer members are financial advisors and insurance advisors.
Sure, we see the same thing.
Yeah, and I think it's because they are addressing a wider need often that owners have than just an attorney. Most attorneys, I think, it's changing, but they're still focused on what their specialty is, and they want to stick to that. They don't want the broader picture of creating an exit plan, working with other advisors, etc. And so that's my story.
Well, I mean, loads me up with questions. One, why did you not want to practice law anymore?
It got boring after a while. It wasn't real exciting. If I'd been a trial lawyer, maybe it would be different, but you can only do so many estate plans before it gets a little tiresome.
Mm-hmm.
And so I felt I could help attorneys grow business, or help clients grow value and retain value. And that was my focus was in helping business owners, not practicing law.
Okay. Okay. And yeah, the book, well now, Definitive Guide is what, your third book? Fourth book? Yeah, third book. Yeah, I can see I've got 5 copies on my shelf over there, that I can give out to clients. Exit
Good, thank
Planning,
you.
the Definitive Guide. Yeah, you always pop up when I go looking for my books and I put in Exit Planning. Yours is always at top, but you know, so I presume you're still selling it. Let me take a quick break to pay for the podcast here, and then we'll come back and I've got some more questions for you, starting with DEI. And when the two of us first got together, nobody knew what the hell exit planning was still 14, 15 years ago.
How would your practice survive if only 25% of your clients were happy with your work? How many referrals would you get? Would you advertise that success rate? Over the last decade, both the Exit Planning Institute and PwC have surveyed owners and found that 75% were profoundly unhappy a year after their exits. In 10 years, the exit planning industry has done little to fix this issue. Business owners need purpose, direction, and activity after exiting. Planning for that starts with your very first coaching conversation. We work with advisors who believe that clients should be happy after exiting. Exit Map is a structured discovery process that helps you have deeper conversations about client options, objectives, and life after the business. We help you launch better transitions. Take a test drive at exitmap.com.
Welcome back to the Exit Planning Coach podcast. I'm here today with one of the founders of a seminal organization in the exit planning field, John Brown of the Business Enterprise Institute in Denver. And we were just talking about your background, John. And BEI, let me ask you a bit about BEI first when you started out. The other organizations in the exit planning space do not offer software. They leave that to vendors. BEI has a proprietary system, Epic, although it's now called Planet in its second iteration. What made you decide, being in the software business myself, I know I was slightly out of my mind when I decided to do this. How did you decide to do it?
Well, I guess you can use generic planning software to create some form of an exit plan, but our software is focused on helping owners grow and protect business value and transition it successfully. And it's designed to do that. We have dozens and dozens of recommendations, all focused on helping an owner grow and protect and exit their business. Generic software can't do that. It wouldn't be generic software if it did do that. So you have to adapt. If you're doing exit planning for a client and you're not using our software, you have to, I don't know how you would do that. I'm sure people do it at some level.
Well, I don't know if there's really is other planning software. I mean, ours is a front end, as you know. We're at the very beginning, just talking about, structured discovery and helping the owner decide a vision for what life is going to be like after the business. All the other softwares, and the 7 or 8 most popular, are all about value enhancement. They're not really about exiting. They're about hitting a number.
Yeah. And they don't probably talk a lot about what you have to do to hit that number. Which is the core of what we're doing, is helping the owner understand what they have to do and supporting them in doing that. And it's not BEI necessarily doing the work. We are helping other advisors. We're training other advisors to become the exit planner or the planning advisor for that client, and we're supporting them. So how we got started in doing that, one was, I have always believed in working with a team of advisors. I've never, unlike a lot of lawyers, at least in the past when I was practicing, who wanted to do everything themselves. I don't know if they just didn't trust other people. A lot of our software deals with forming the team, keeping the team informed, having meetings, making recommendations, and we have over 100 recommendations for action in our software. Everything from designing a non-qualified deferred compensation plan to gifting strategies with family to asset protection planning within the company. We have dozens of recommendations that are generated by our software. So, and again, the advisor doesn't have to search through all the recommendations one by one to find out what's appropriate. The software, based on the answers that the clients give the advisor, will point the advisor in the right direction. So that's one thing. We've just redone our entire website. You should go on. It's brand new.
I have, yeah.
Software is totally revised. And as we go through this, and I think I'm sure this is the case with your clients as well. A lot of owners are saying, well, I'm going to exit someday, but right now I just want to grow value.
Right.
I
Sure.
need to grow value. And so we have a new planning path that's it's just coming out in the next month. It's starting now and coming out for the next couple of months. It's called owner-based planning, OBP. It's not exit planning because we know that most owners that you talk to today, advisor, are not wanting to start exit planning today. In fact, one of the answers I got when I was still practicing is that they say, well, yeah, John, I'd like to do exit planning. I'll start exit planning when I'm ready to exit.
Right. Right.
That's good,
Yeah.
but it doesn't give us any time to develop value, develop the management team, and do all the things that you do on the front end, John.
Yeah, the classic, talk to me in 5 years. Yeah.
And so what owner-based planning does is it uses a lot of our tools in exit planning, but it focuses on growing value. So a lot of it's incentive planning, things like that, protecting value, whether it's through insurance, whether it's through employment contracts, et cetera, et cetera. We've got 25 recommendations just on protecting value, growing value. And then we also, the last part of it is business continuity planning. Because again, we have owners who don't want to start exit planning now. Well, they'd have to do, I shouldn't say that. They certainly should do continuity planning in case they don't survive.
Absolutely. We talked about that. And,
Yeah.
I make differentiation between contingency planning, which is what is the building burns down, you lose your backups, whatever, and continuity planning, which is you can't show up tomorrow. And that's something I learned at BEI, the functionality of the business if the leader isn't there one day.
Yeah.
And where do you go from there?
And so in the financial insurance planning world, the response to that is let's have a buy-sell agreement. That's the main response. It's usually the only response advisors give because that's the only tool they have. And that is a perfectly valid partial response for businesses that are co-owned. But over half the businesses in this country are solely owned. So what's the continuity planning, for example, for them? Well, usually there's nothing that really has been done. And what we have, the tools we use, they would be used in exit planning, but we also use them in owner-based planning, business continuity instructions, stay bonuses, employment agreements. All these are recommendations our software makes. So with buy-sell agreements, one of the advantages for insurance advisors is obviously there's an opportunity to sell insurance to fund the buy-sell agreement. But a couple of things. One, there are many other things that have to be done in co-owned businesses that insurance advisors can do and use their tools and products to do in addition to buy-sell agreements. For example, there are probably key people within the company. They need key person life insurance along with an employment agreement for those key people. There's disability buyout insurance that's often not covered in buy-sell agreements. There needs to be in a buy-sell agreement, which is not in very many buy-sell agreements, what happens if the owners don't get along and it's a 50-50 owned business. So there's just a plethora of different discussion points for insurance advisors to bring up to their clients and their potential clients. Not everyone is going to lead to an insurance sale, but it's going to lead to the owner having confidence that the insurance advisor has their best interests at heart and can help them in ways that don't necessarily always involve buying an insurance product. And that's a great credibility factor that we need to think about. So the buy-sell agreements should contain things, and these are all in our recommendations in our software, not just death, not just disability, but what happens if a co-owner quits and they're 50-50 owned? Well, they might still be entitled to their compensation. So is there a
Well, you were the one that taught me the term Texas shootout, so.
yeah. We in Colorado we call it the Texas shootout, where
I
at
know, we
the end
don't
of
call it that
bargaining,
here.
yeah, there's only one owner. Yeah, other states have different names for it. So what happens if an owner wants to, over time retire? How do you discuss that in the context of a co-owned company? So there's a lot of other opportunities for advisors, insurance and financial advisors especially, but also attorneys, to get involved in buy-sell planning. What has not occurred to nearly as great of an extent is the continuity planning that's needed for solely owned businesses. Most advisors, including insurance advisors, don't really do anything. They don't have any recommendations to make. They don't have any tools to use that really are effective in a business continuity scenario. So in owner-based business planning, as well as exit planning, we have recommendations that deal with that. And were we brilliant in determining these new ideas are really so good for business owners, which they are? No, we learned by trial and error, just like everybody.
Sure.
But we learned. And so now our members have recommendations available in the software for continuity planning for sole owners. Well, what does that mean? It might just mean that we have business continuity instructions, which is a piece of software. It creates continuity instructions about 15 pages long that talk about what does the owner want to do if she should die before exiting the business. Who can run the business today? Which creditors should be called? A plethora of information. Where's all the important information? Who is the banker? Who should be calling the banker? So it's very comprehensive, so that if and when an owner dies, the business can continue. That's one thing. The second thing, another recommendation we make, for example, are stay bonuses. We have a stay bonus document that says, hey, key employees or important employees, if I die as the sole owner, I have a stay bonus plan for you. And you create it now and you fund it now, of course. Maybe there's 5 important employees that if they would stay once if the sole owner dies, the business would not collapse. It could continue on until it's acquired either by the key people or by a third party, or maybe even liquidated in an appropriate manner. So that's stay bonus planning. It's funded by life insurance on the owner's life, and the proceeds are used to ensure that the compensation for the key employees remains, plus a bonus usually equal to 50% of the annual compensation is paid out to them quarterly, for example, if they stay after the owner dies. So a variety of tools like that can be used effectively by all advisors. As far as I know, John, you see it differently. Nobody else has these tools.
No, not to that extent. One of the things that we do when we're talking about continuity too, and if you don't do it, it's something you can think about is the advisor team. I first experienced this some years ago. I had a client that I was coaching. He had about a $50 million company. And one day I went in and he proudly showed me an envelope that said, if the plane goes down. And he said, I just wrote this letter to my two daughters who are not involved in the business.
Mhm.
And it says that if something happens to me, they are to contact you and do whatever you tell them to do with the business. And I was like, I was very pleased and proud, obviously. But when I left, I'm like, what does that mean? Am I supposed to drop my practice and run a $50 million business? Can I
Yeah. Practical,
hire
yeah.
people? Do I get paid for this? How does this work? You just put this burden on me with absolutely no underpinning whatsoever.
Yeah, that's great. But to your point, the continuity instructions would name who the attorneys, the CPAs, the
Hmm.
insurance advisors, the financial advisors, friendly competitors who would come in and help run the business, perhaps for a limited amount of time, so that if the owner dies, the business will continue.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
indefinitely. There has to be maybe if new leadership can come in, maybe it can be continued. But the idea really is to make sure that the owner's death doesn't cause the death of the business, at least
Yes.
in a finite time.
Yeah. And at least disposal instructions too.
Yeah.
If, to just put my 12-year-old son in charge or something like that. You run into those too, right?
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
going to happen? My son's going to take it over. Well, he'll be out of college in 12 years, and and then I'm sure he'll be ready. Um, but let me ask you. We gotta move on, but let me ask you
Okay.
a final question, and it's the one we all hate. What's your exit plan?
I pretty much exited.
Ha-
Fletcher
ha-
Brown now owns the business.
Ah,
Yeah. Not that just has occurred in the last few months.
I know. Well, I knew Fletcher was
Yeah.
had returned to the business and was active. I didn't realize he had acquired it.
Yeah. So he's been very active. He's doing a great job. He's doing a much far better job than I could have done or the prior management could have done. So he's over as the CEO and is also managing the business and has started a lot of new initiatives within BEI, even in a short time frame. I would encourage people, advisors listening in, go to our website, exitplan.com. It's a
Hmm.
brand new website. You'll see a lot of the new things that we're doing. Um, and we'd love to talk to you.
Great. Well, I have continued to enjoy my membership and continue to enjoy my trips to Denver, where I meet with colleagues who actually do planning.
Yeah.
The popular byword in the industry now is becoming, are you a planning doer or are you a planning talker? And BEI has certainly been a center point for planning doers. Really enjoyed our relationship, going on 15 years now.
Wow.
Have learned an awful lot from you, John, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate you coming on. John Brown, one of the founders of the whole exit planning. I mean, when we started, we had to explain to people what exit planning was. They had no clue. You know, now at least it's a term of use in business.
Maybe misused,
Uh,
but it's used darn
yeah,
well.
yeah.
Yeah.
And certainly the author of several books, but the most recent and the most comprehensive one, Exit Planning, the Definitive Guide. And I recommend it highly, and I do give out copies to clients. So thank you very much for coming on, John.
Thank
And
you.
thank you very much for what you've contributed to the industry.
Thank you,
Certainly
John Dini. It's been a
my
pleasure.
joy. Okay. Have a great day. Thanks a lot.
All right.